Every family holds secrets. Some are small, hidden in subtle silences, others are so profound they shape entire generations. At my sister's wedding, a simple gesture, being placed in the side aisle, away from the celebration, revealed much more than just a seating choice. It was the trigger for a truth that had remained hidden for years, suffocated by appearances and conventions. What should have been a night of celebration and unity transformed into a stage of revelations, where every word spoken brought old wounds to the surface. My exit was not just an act of hurt, but the beginning of a chain of events that would shock everyone and forever change how our family saw itself. This is not just the story of an interrupted wedding. It is a story of belonging, of courage, and of how the truth, no matter how painful, always finds a way to reveal itself. The hall was illuminated by hundreds of small golden lights, reflecting off the white floral arrangements that decorated each table. My sister's wedding was the most anticipated event in the family, and everyone seemed to occupy prominent seats. Everyone, except me. When I arrived, with the invitation carefully folded in my pocket, I was guided by one of the organizers to a chair in the side aisle. There was no table, no company. Just a solitary seat, distant from the party, as if I were an unwanted spectator. I looked around and saw my aunts laughing, my cousins toasting, and even neighbors who barely knew my sister occupying better seats. My blood boiled. It wasn't just about the chair, it was about what it represented. I wasn't part of it. I stood up, took a deep breath, and, without saying a word, walked toward the exit. The sound of music and laughter grew distant until it disappeared. What happened next, no one could have predicted. The ballroom was filled with an atmosphere of celebration. The golden lights reflected off the white floral arrangements, and every table seemed carefully prepared to convey elegance and importance. My sister's wedding was the family's most anticipated event, and everyone seemed to occupy prominent places. Everyone, except me. Since childhood, I always knew there was a difference in how my sister was treated. She was the family star, the daughter who seemed to carry all our parents' expectations and dreams. I, on the other hand, was the supporting cast, the one who was present but rarely remembered. The comparisons were inevitable. At school, when I brought home average grades, I only received a nod. When my sister received medals, there were parties, photos, and pride stamped in everyone's eyes. Slowly, I learned to keep quiet, to accept my invisible role. Over time, this difference turned into distance. I sought my own path, but there was always a shadow. Your sister succeeded, your sister did better, your sister is an example. Her wedding seemed to be the culmination of that narrative. It wasn't just a ceremony. It was the celebration of the perfect daughter, the admired bride, the woman everyone exalted. And I, once again, was placed in the aisle. Not by chance, but as a symbol of everything I had always experienced, being present, but never truly included. As I walked out of the hall, old memories mingled with the distant music. The birthday party where I wasn't invited to the main table. The graduation where I barely appeared in the photos. My unexpected departure immediately began to impact the wedding. This moment was crucial, as it showed how an apparently silent gesture could trigger murmurs, tensions, and even reveal hidden secrets. As soon as I walked through the hall door and left behind the muffled sound of the music, a strange silence seemed to settle among some guests. It wasn't a literal silence, the band kept playing, the toast still echoed, but there was something different in the air. First came the glances. Some noticed my absence almost immediately. One aunt whispered to another, subtly pointing to the empty chair in the aisle. A cousin laughed, as if it were just another one of my eccentricities. But others didn't laugh. Others felt that something was wrong. The buzzing started small, like a wave forming far out at sea. Did he leave? But why? Wasn't he happy? The questions spread from table to table, growing in intensity. My sister, still at the altar, didn't notice right away. She was engrossed in the rituals, the loving looks at the groom, the camera flashes. But my mother, always attentive, noticed. Her eyes swept the room, looking for me, and when she didn't find me, her face changed. My mother, under pressure, tried to justify herself. I just wanted to avoid problems. He was always difficult. The words fell like stones. Difficult. The entire hall seemed to react. Some guests shook their heads, others stood up in protest. The groom finally spoke. If he is difficult, it's because you made him that way. Someone who grows up being treated as invisible has no choice but to be different. The shock was widespread. The groom, until then discreet, loudly exposed what many already suspected: the exclusion was not just a detail, it was an open wound. The party began to fall apart. People left, others argued, and the band's music could no longer cover the sound of raised voices. The wedding, which should have been a celebration of union, turned into an impromptu tribunal, where every word revealed secrets guarded for years. And in the center of everything, my absence was like a ghost. I wasn't there, but my shadow dominated the hall. The hall was in collapse. Guests argued, some were already leaving, and the band's music had become an uncomfortable backdrop. In the center of everything, my sister remained standing, her white dress gleaming under the lights, but her face marked by pain. She took a deep breath, raised her voice, and said, "This wedding cannot continue like this. I cannot celebrate the most important union of my life while my brother is treated as if he doesn't exist." The silence was immediate. Even the musicians stopped. The groom looked at her, surprised, but did not try to interrupt her. "If he's not here, if he doesn't feel like he's a part of this, then none of this makes sense," she continued. "I don't want a party built on exclusion. I want a whole family, even with its differences, even with its pains." My mother tried to intervene, but my sister raised her hand, firm. "No, mother. Today is not about convenience. Today is about truth." And then, in front of everyone, she made an unexpected decision: she suspended the ceremony. "This wedding will not continue until my brother is here. Until he is recognized as part of this family." The shock was absolute. Some guests applauded, others protested, but no one was indifferent. The groom, moved, merely nodded. He knew that choice was not just about me, but about their future. In that instant, the wedding ceased to be merely a celebration. It became a manifesto. My sister's decision struck the hall like lightning. Guests stood up, some indignant, others emotional. The wedding, which was supposed to be an impeccable celebration, was suspended in front of everyone. Some family members tried to convince my sister to backtrack. "Don't do this, it will be a scandal," an anxious aunt said. "Think about the family's reputation," a cousin added. But she was unmoved. "I prefer a scandal over a lie. I prefer facing the truth over smiling at a farce." The groom, beside her, supported every word. And so, the hall was divided, half supported her courage, half criticized the decision. The wedding was no longer just a party, it was a moral battleground. Meanwhile, I was walking the streets, far from the hall, having no idea what was happening. It was then that I heard hurried footsteps behind me. It was my sister, still in her wedding dress, running along the sidewalk lit only by old lampposts. "Wait," she shouted, breathless. When I turned, I saw tears in her eyes. "You shouldn't have left. This day doesn't make sense without you." I hesitated. The pain was still strong, but her sincerity hit me hard. "You always knew how they treated me. And you never said anything." She lowered her head. "I was wrong. I thought I couldn't fight them. But today I realized I can't continue without you." It was at that moment that the weight of years of silence began to dissolve. For the first time, my sister recognized me not as a shadow, but as an essential part of her story. We returned to the hall together. The impact was immediate. Guests stood up, some applauded, others murmured in disapproval. But my sister didn't care. "This is my brother," she said firmly. "And if anyone doesn't accept that, they shouldn't be here." The groom approached and greeted me with respect. The band resumed the music, but now the atmosphere was different. There was no more artificial perfection, there was truth. My mother, in silence, seemed defeated. But even she knew that something had changed forever. The wedding would not be remembered for the flowers, the food, or the decor. It would be remembered as the day the truth came to light, the day a family was forced to face its own failures. And I, who had been placed in the aisle, was finally in the center. Not out of vanity, but because, for the first time, someone recognized that I should have always been there. My sister's wedding will never be remembered only as a party. It became a landmark, a watershed moment. The chair in the aisle, which seemed like just a detail, revealed years of silences, exclusions, and hidden wounds. My departure was not a gesture of pride, but of pain. And that pain, exposed in front of everyone, forced the family to confront truths it had always preferred to ignore. In the end, it wasn't about flowers, music, or dresses. It was about belonging. It was about recognizing that no one should be placed in the side aisle of their own story. My sister, by suspending the ceremony, showed courage. She chose truth over appearance, real unity over artificial perfection. And, with that, she paved the way for me to finally be seen, not as a shadow, but as an essential part of the family. How many times in our lives do we accept being placed in the aisle? How many times do we remain silent in the face of exclusion, believing that we don't have a seat at the table? This story is an invitation: don't accept being invisible. Claim your space, your voice, your presence. Because every person deserves to be at the center of their own life, and not just observing from afar. Whether at work, in family, or in relationships, do not allow others to decide where you should sit. Stand up, walk, and make your absence felt, until your presence is recognized.